because, I when I was going through this, through menopause, I was working, I had a director position with a large financial, company, and I had to be on my game. I think I'm a smart person, but this made me start to second guess, like, when I would lose my words, when I would be going in, and I would remember sitting at the boardroom and starting to feel I'm getting hot, like from my toes. And I remember having high boots on and trying to be like normal and like unzipping my boots because I was literally having a meltdown.
Wow.
And, it was mostly a male dominated industry that I was in. So I wasn't going to share that with anybody. And, when you can't remember your words, or you're going to look for something and you're like, oh my gosh, like, why am I looking in the fridge for my phone? You kind of think you're crazy. Like, you do really think, oh my gosh, like, what is happening to me?
Hi, everyone. I have Karen here with me. She's a health and wellness expert, and she found health and wellness through her personal journey, which is what we're going to talk about today. And I'm so excited to be having this conversation. We're going to talk about hormonal health for women, fasting for women, and also menopause. And why should I care? Because I'm in my 30s. And I think these are the conversations that we need to start having right now, because nobody's going to tell you. And you're on your own. No one's going to come save you. No one's going to come tell you this is what you're going through. And internally, you might feel crazy. And I think Karen can validate me on that. And she's going to share her own journey
Yeah.
and share more about that. So is there anything else you would like to add about yourself, just to introduce yourself to people?
Yeah, I think you've done a great job. Yeah, we're good.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. So we can get started with, the first question, like, what was your personal journey? What made you find this work and want to get deeper into it and do your own research and learn more about it? What was your journey? What led you to this?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I've always been curious. So I'm always wondering like what's going on, and especially with your body too, right? Because everybody's body is so different. Yours is different than mine. And when I was probably mm, I would say late 30s. I started reading a lot of what Suzanne Summers' book, Sexy After 40, because I didn't want to lose my sex appeal. And I thought, wow, she's so proactive. I really want to be proactive too. Anyways, I took information pretty serious in her book, and it said, please, like, go take this information, talk to your doctor. Well, I went to my doctor, and my doctor was like, "What's wrong with you? Like, why are you wanting to know this kind of information?" And I
Mhm,
got really nervous and embarrassed. So
mhm,
I just stopped the conversation, and I didn't say anything anymore. And I kind of wanted just to get out of the doctor's office as soon as I could. And this is, I think, a good point of when you were saying before is like, it doesn't matter. You may not be in perimenopause right now, but at least if you know what your normal looks like for you, as you're going through this and as you're starting to see changes, you need to note this stuff down, because I didn't know what was happening to me. I just read a few things. My mom never talked anything about that. And so part of my journey was like trying to figure stuff out on my own. And I
mhm,
went to my doctor to try and, get more information, and she looked at me weird. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just
mhm,
read more books. But guess what? There were no books, and I didn't know where to go. So that's part of the reason, my book, I'm Not Crazy, You're Not Crazy. It's Menopause, A Girlfriend's Guide to Survive. It's why I felt the need, like I had to get this information out. I am not a doctor, but I am a geek in science. And so the book is really um, a nice blend of the two. Because if you do want to get a little bit and want to know the why, but it's all experiences, right? And like, just like once we start talking about something with our girlfriends,
Mm.
then they're like, oh, yeah, does that happen to you too? Because, and
Yeah.
so we want to, we want to normalize this conversation instead of it
Mhm.
being something hidden. Cause there's so many of us, right? We're going to be going through it. I'm now postmenopause, but where do people go to get information that's not from a doctor textbooky where it's hard to follow what they're talking about?
Mhm. Yeah. And the title of your book, You're Not Crazy, I'm Not Crazy, It's Menopause. Yeah, the crazy part. Let's talk about the crazy part. How
Yeah.
were you made to feel like you were crazy or that even to care about what was happening to you, right? The doctor's reaction of like, why do
Mhm.
you care? What is wrong with you for caring? I mean, that has to affect you, right? Like, am I crazy? Am
Yes.
I like hyper fixating on this thing and making it worse? Can you speak about the crazy part of like what that is like?
Absolutely, because I when I was going through this with through menopause, I was working I had a director position with a large financial company, and I had to be on my game. I think I'm a smart person, but this made me start to second guess, like when I would
Mhm.
lose my words, when I would be going in, and I would remember sitting at like a board around the boardroom and starting to feel I'm getting hot, like from my toes. And I remember having high boots on and trying to be like normal and like unzipping my boots because I was literally having a meltdown.
Oh.
And it was mostly a male dominated industry that I was in. So I wasn't going to share that with anybody. And, when you can't remember your words, or you're going to look for something and you're like, oh my gosh, like, why am I looking in the fridge for my phone? You kind of think you're crazy. Like, you do really think, oh my gosh, like, what is happening to me? I remember my daughter saying, Mom, can you not like speak in sentences anymore? Because everything was like, like get the thing, right? And she would be like,
Mm.
what are you talking about? So you kind of think like, am I losing my mind? Am I a little batshit crazy? Like, what is happening, right? And
Yeah.
and if you're talking about it to other people or friends, or like, hey, this is what I'm going through, you don't know, like, you don't know. And
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah. And that reminds me of like a family member who would do things like that. So she would call the TV a microwave. Can you turn off the microwave? And the TV was on, and we would all make fun of her. We would laugh.
Yeah.
But what was she going through? And that's like mind blowing that
Mm.
how the automatic reaction, right, is to say, what is wrong with you? Or to make at
Yeah.
least even like make fun of people, right? Like, why? What
Yeah.
are you malfunctioning? Kind of attitude. And of course, none of us knew any better. We were all like, oh, that's so funny. That's like hilarious. She's calling the TV microwave. Like,
Yeah.
but was she going through a brain fog, like because of
Yeah.
hormonal changes?
Exactly. Yeah. And that brain fog, you know, I think when people think about perimenopause and hormones, they're just thinking about our ovaries, like the estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. We're not thinking about like the hypothalamus, which is in your brain, is what is like the master of all your hormones, and it controls
Oh.
your temperature, your body temperature. So that was really important in my book to talk about the brain, like the connection. It's not just your ovaries down here. It's everything working together, right? And you do have that brain fog, and it feels like when you're in brain fog, it feels like there's about 5 inches in front of you, and you're trying to it gets all cloudy, and it takes a minute to like register and come back. And I think the message here is this is all temporary. Like, it's not a forever thing, right? But I think that one of the other key points is, and why I'm glad we're talking about this, is that even when we go through puberty, right? Like we get our periods, we're like, okay, things are happening. Some people may or may not get pregnant or want to like whatever. That stage is that stage. But when you come into perimenopause, things start happening, but there's really no like tap on the shoulder from Mother Nature to go, hey, you're in perimenopause. You're all good. Don't worry about it. We're going to do this and this. So it's really frustrating. And yeah, like, and so where do you go? So when I was looking at, because I'll share my experience, what happened to me, like, which was like kind of the pivoting point is I had this great job. I traveled all across. I'm from Canada, so I traveled all across Canada. I worked with a high net worth, blah blah blah. I had an awesome job, and then I started like my boss would be asking me things, and I'd be like, oh, geez, or like I would wake up in the morning and I'd have migraine headaches. Like I never get a headache. These migraine headaches were like I couldn't get out of bed, and I'd have to call in sick. Well, I don't call in like I'm a pretty healthy person. So I started to get all these other symptoms, and then just the brain fog and not being able to remember. And I remember going in to talk to my boss and be like, hey, this is what I think I'm going through. But it felt like it was an excuse. Like, oh yeah, so your job performance isn't you're not as sharp as you were before. Like, what's wrong with you? So the conversation was hard because she was a lot younger than I. But if we would have been talking about our pregnancy, like, hey, I'm pregnant, I'm 16, that she would have been like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you. This is going to be fabulous. But that wasn't the conversation that we had. And she couldn't relate to what I was going through. So was this just an excuse? And so there's a lot of women where we are now in our prime and we have so much information. We're ready to go. We don't have to, because women, as we go through careers, if you want to have babies and kids, then you kind of put your career on hold a little bit. So now we're in a point of our life where our careers can just like skyrocket. And we now fall into this little bit of a brain fog for a few years without the right tools or help out there. And so we leave, we just quit. We walk away from it all, and we don't have to.
Not knowing it's temporary, right?
Exactly.
Not knowing that it's not going to last forever because the message is that it's somehow an internal flaw. Oh, maybe I'm getting older and this is just what happens to hormones or bodies, and this is me, this is my identity, this is who I'm going to be forever. Might as well quit now because I'm going downhill. And I don't blame women for thinking like that because, I mean, here's the reality of what happens, right? If you were to go to your provider, your health provider, or even a mental health practitioner, we still kind of function off of this idea that the mind is separate than the rest of the body. And there really is not a biological understanding of how biology can impact mental health. Yes, we're having that conversation. We're beginning to have that conversation now, but we're just scratching the surface.
Absolutely.
And so if you were to go to a mental health professional, okay, so like it's anxiety, right? As if anxiety or depression just kind of function, on their own, separated from the rest of your body. And the mind is just like a separate thing. And somehow it becomes like an internal flaw, almost like a weakness. Like, how are you not managing? Like, what are the stressors? And so you're not managing the stressors properly in your life, when the reality is that the entire body is changing and your biology is, of course, impacting your mental health. So I understand like hearing those messages, right? And of course, the workforce is also not designed for women. It's been so patriarchal, how it's been designed. So I understand hearing those messages from everybody, right? Like from your health provider to your boss who even though she was a woman, that was not an experience she had yet. And it's one of those things, like you said, you don't know until you go through it. And I'm sure she had her time, or she will have her
Oh,
time.
yeah,
I'm
I'm
sure
sure.
she'll look back and say, "Oh, okay, I see."
Yeah. But it's all relative, right? Like I remember in another role I had, I was 31. Had just had my first baby, came back, and I was a manager of probably 25 women my age now. And nobody ever, like, I didn't even know, like, and I'd think, geez, some of these ladies are like really grumpy or they're never very happy or, geez, like they're, so, I'm going now total opposite. And I'm like, oh, nobody ever said to me, hey, we're going through menopause because nobody talked about it back
Yeah,
then, right? So
yeah,
we just
yeah.
labeled people like, oh, they're grumpy old ladies. And that, like, I hate labeling because it's so hard to get rid of a label, right? Once it's been established. But that was my, like, I'm like, well, I didn't know that. And I had those kind of prejudice of like, and that was totally wrong of me. But you only know what you know, right? And that's
Yeah,
again
yeah.
why we need to be talking about this.
Exactly. And I hear you. I've said the same thing. I used to say things like, I don't know what happens to women when they get older. They just turn jaded. I'm never gonna be one of those women. They're just like get like angry and jaded and just so like wanting to control everything. And yeah, it's once again lack of understanding, or like not
Yeah.
having that education of what are they going through, what makes them the way they are.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
it's interesting because for my book, because it is a girlfriend's guide, I interviewed a lot of my girlfriends. And, it was funny, because in one of the chapters we talk about sex, like sex changes and what is it? And, some were like, "Oh my God, I'm so exhausted. I just don't have any room for that." Other, because we do Zoom calls, right? And the body language, some people would be like, "Oh, don't ask me. Like everything's good or whatever." So, it's just once you get those conversations going, that's where, where it starts. And then to be able to ask your mom or your aunt or somebody like, "Hey, when you went through this, like, did you have a lot of symptoms?" Because right now, if you're not quite in perimenopause, like, this is the best time. This is where you should be writing down things. And this is how I feel, and start tracking your periods. And how do you feel? Because our hormones all change throughout the month, right? So after your period's done, then you start to build like that estrogen and testosterone, like all those are starting to build again. And the interesting part is like could you imagine if you said, okay, well, in these first 2 weeks, if you're a if you're in the corporate world, these are the times when you're gonna like go do um interviews and job performance and like all that really hard stuff, business planning and things, but don't or a whole full day of Zooms. But then as your schedule changes, and maybe at the end of your uh you know 18, 19 days of your cycle, when progesterone starts to come in, then maybe that's like where you might say, you know what, I'm just going to work from home for these 2 days. Like, and that's why having that awareness, because everybody's cycle is going to be different, but having that awareness of, oh, that's why I can do those hard workouts at the beginning because I've got so much energy, right? But
Mhm.
then the end of my cycle, maybe I should be doing like Pilates, still doing some strength
Mhm.
training or doing some walking. And I think we can be so hard on ourselves to be like, oh, that workout was crap today. Like I didn't have the energy. And
Mhm.
we the self-talk is awful versus going, oh wait, no, this is what's happening inside me. I need to give myself, maybe I'm gonna do a nice meditation, gonna go to yoga, and give yourself that permission to do that.
Mhm. Yeah. Because I mean, with this entire conversation, right? It's so important to state that it's not all doom and gloom. Being a girl is
No.
still a superpower. Being a girl is still so empowering. It's just that this
Yeah.
world that we live in has not been designed for us with
Yeah.
information keeping us in mind. It really hasn't. Like even the studies um done around, right, like fasting, and it's been for men. And
Mhm.
and I recently just discovered the book Fast Like a Girl, and I've been listening to it in my audiobook, and I've been taking notes, and exactly like you're talking about the cycle, right? And I'm connecting the dots, and I'm saying, yeah, like about 10 days before my period, that's when
Mhm.
I start feeling it. I want to slow down. I don't have as much energy. I want to eat more. I
Yes.
want to eat more bread. I want to eat more
Yeah.
cheese. And what happens if I fight that? Can you tell me a little bit about it? If I develop this mindset of, well, no, I being this way is not good. I need to go, go, go. And what happens if I try to bulldoze my way through that instead of giving my body what it needs and taking a step back, relaxing, eating, right? What happens if I try
Yeah.
to fight that?
Yeah. So, and I found intermittent fasting, probably 5 years ago. And that's why I
Mhm.
became a Fast Like a Girl certified coach. So,
Okay.
um, and it, because intermittent fasting is so amazing for your body. And we talk about like the fasting and the two types of metabolisms that you have, right? So you get that sugar burner, and then once you get to a 17-hour part of your fast, you switch into autophagy, so more of a fat. Now your body is so smart, it knows exactly what to do. So once you switch over into that 17 hours, then your body's like, okay, wait, it actually shuts off hunger. And I've
Mhm.
fasted so much that I can actually feel where my body switches now into
Mhm.
hunger shuts down, ketones, like when I'm writing the book, the ketones that come into your brain that make you feel sharper and,
Mhm.
no more brain fog, right? So, um, we talk about too, like nature's carbs. So, and the other thing too is our blood sugar, right? Blood sugar
Mhm.
matters, calories don't. So I prick my finger every morning. I know what my blood sugar is. I follow that, and I can, I love scones. Like
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
love all of that
Yeah.
stuff. So for me, right, it's like,
My
oh, so
mouth is watering.
I know
Thank you.
I've had to I've had to adapt to what is working, like what works. So, how do I then not feel guilty? Okay, I'm not going to do a scone, but, and I love mashed potatoes, but now I make cauliflower mashed potatoes. And,
Mhm.
in the book, Eat Like a Girl, it gives you all those like hormone building foods that we should be eating throughout like in different types of our cycle. And that's what I love about that, like intermittent fasting, what you should be eating, because if we eat all refined carbohydrates, like, that's just going to spike your insulin. And if you have spiked insulin all the time, right, like your body just can't, it can only do what it can do. And we tax it with all these other things. So, maybe a sweet potato. I think too is just getting curious to see what it is that you like and what can you switch out. And they're baby steps, because we can't do all this overnight, right? Like it's small little changes that you have to do that are sustainable.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And in the book, this is like I was just listening to it this morning. And so like from day 18 of your cycle until you get your period, um, that's when, if you push
Mhm.
it, cortisol spikes, right?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that's why it's so important to be mindful of when to push yourself and when to not push yourself. Because if I were to try to bulldoze my way right now, I'm on day 18. Yeah, I'm on day 18.
Yep.
So specifically day 18 onward. And I feel
Mhm.
it. This morning, I woke up and I was like, I just want to go on a walk. I don't want to do a crazy workout. I want to do really relaxing yoga. I'm
Yeah.
wearing my sweatpants right now. I want to
Yeah.
kind of nest. I
Yes.
don't want to really socialize. And so if I were to try to fight that, my cortisol would spike.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
that that's anxiety. That's creating chaos within yourself.
Yeah.
Um
And your body's starting to wrap up to make progesterone, right? So
Mhm.
when you're wanting to relax, you can feel the shift, right? And what you want to do. And I think it's just giving ourselves permission. We don't give ourselves permission enough to be able to feel the way we feel, because if you think about it,
Yeah.
we're trying to do so many things. So depending on what you're going on, like I remember this lady said to us, put in the top 5 things that are a priority. And everybody, oh, this, my job, my kids, my family. And then she said, where did you guys put your name? Like, where did you put you? I was like, oh,
Mhm.
I was number 5. What were you? And she's like, you all should be number 1. Like, but we're so busy doing other things. Like, I call it push, go, do. Like, I got to get this done. I got to get that done. Then, somebody say, well, mom, are you going to cook dinner? Oh, well, mom, like, help me with
Mhm.
my homework. It's like, you choose. Do you want dinner or do you want homework help? But because I can't do it all. Right.
Mhm.
And then as you're going through these things and start to going through perimenopause, and people are starting to go, or even through your cycle right now, right? When you're going through PMS, and we'd be like, oh, wow, she's really grumpy. But it's not it's not that. And again, it's,
Mhm.
some of these labels, but it's explaining too within your family to go like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm going through this and this is what it's all about. You guys, you have to
Yeah.
give me some grace."
Yeah. And can I add that when I give myself those things that I need, I'm not grumpy. When I do
Mhm.
slow down, when I do eat that slice of pizza because I'm close to my period, right? And I don't judge myself. And put
Yeah.
myself first. Let's put it that way. Put
Yeah.
myself first. What I need, I'm led by the needs of the self, right? What does the self need right now? Is it just something like laying on the couch, going for a walk, whatever it may be? If I give myself those things, I am not grumpy. I'm not mean. And that's important for my husband because he says, "Oh, you're getting mean. You're about to get your
Yeah.
period." He knows when I'm getting my period. He knows
Yeah.
like I'll ask him sometimes, like, "Oh, when did I get my period last month?" And he'll tell me the exact
Yeah.
date because he
That's
knows.
awesome.
He's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah,
But
but
you know
you
what?
know
Yes, if I put myself first and give myself the things that I need, the people around me will also be okay. So let's conceptualize it that way, right? Because as women,
yeah.
sometimes we're like, "Oh my God, you're putting yourself first? Wow." And this word follows
Yeah.
selfish. How selfish,
Yeah.
how self centered, right? But let's
Yeah.
conceptualize it this way. If you put yourself first and the needs of yourself first, the people around you do not suffer. Maybe that putting it that way
Mhm.
is what was going to help some women um,
Yes. It's
really take their
reframing
needs
it.
into consideration. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just reframing it. And I think, we feel so guilty. Oh, like, if somebody says, "Oh, I'm going for a massage," you almost like don't even want to say it too loud. Like, I'm going for a massage. I'm going to leave today early and I'm going to go for a massage. And people, yeah. And once I realized how much it makes me feel good, and lymphatic massages, like those are amazing. I was like, yeah, I'm not trying to cover that up. Why do we do that? Like, it's almost like we don't feel we deserve that kind of treatment. Like,
Yeah.
where, massage is so great because it's like getting your body all back into alignment again.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's so interesting how that narrative is so prevalent in any
Mhm.
culture, right?
Yeah.
Because the culture that I'm from, in the South Asian culture, Yes. So women, when they focus on themselves, it's selfish. Anything is selfish. And speaking of getting massages, I was going to schedule one today and I didn't because it just seems so frivolous. It's like, why? I don't really need it. So I'll go to the chiropractor if I need it. If I'm like literally not able to like turn my neck and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like suffering,
Yeah.
I'll go to the chiropractor. But yeah, I just could not get myself to schedule that massage. And this is what I said to my husband. I was like, man, I'm such an immigrant. Like that's what I said. I was like, I'm such an immigrant. It's all about like work hard, like work, like hustle, and never
Yeah.
about like taking care of yourself. But it's not just that. Like I get it. It's like 10 times worse in the South Asian culture. I can guarantee you that. Like my mom to this
Yeah.
day, like I try to put nail polish on her toes and she was so uncomfortable. She was like, no, why, like this is just, I don't want
Yeah.
this. Like she's not used to
Yeah.
the focus being on her ever. The focus
Mhm.
has always been on someone else or kids, family,
Yes.
since her early 20s, and it's
Yeah.
so foreign to her, to this idea of, okay, what do I need? But I mean,
Mhm.
I yell at her, I have conversations with her, I say, you have to learn how to take care of yourself. You
Mhm.
have to start doing these things to take care of yourself. You have to put the needs of yourself before, because if you're okay, we're all okay, the rest of us.
Right.
She's the
And
matriarch of our family.
yes. Yes, exactly. And it's just really interesting. Dr. Lisa Mosconi, she wrote The Menopause Brain,
Mhm.
and she talks about as we get older, our brain, the information, like it's pared away. Like if I don't, my daughter might say, "Mom, when you were pregnant with me, do you?" And I'm like, I don't remember that anymore because
Mhm.
I don't to know that anymore, right? So then you get to this place in life where the kids are grown, everybody's, you know. So what is my purpose now? So that's what I find a lot of women in
Mhm.
menopause, going into postmenopause, we don't know what our purpose is because we've never put ourselves first to then be able to transition nicely into what our next phase looks like. But it's such a gift, right? You can do whatever it is that you want to do. There's so many women that begin new companies or new um businesses or whatever, because now we have the time that we can focus on something that brings us joy,
Mhm.
happiness, right? Like, at the beginning of your cycle, the estrogen is also producing like serotonin, like things that make you feel good, gives you dopamine, you've got motivation. And then all those things kind of fall apart. And now we're in postmenopause where we don't have those things. So where do you get that now? Like, I know I
Mhm.
have a crazy dog that's bothered me throughout this whole thing, but me just petting my dog can release oxytocin. It's that like,
Yeah.
oh, it feels good, right? So I think, it's really taking a step back, but it's easier said than done.
Hmm. Why is that? Why is it easier said than done? Because we
Well,
can
I
talk
think
about it, right?
you can talk
Yeah.
about it and say, "Oh, yeah," but when it
Yeah.
actually comes to doing it, I've created a little bit of a checklist for certain things
Mhm.
because I'll get too distracted. And then I'm like, "Wait, I haven't done any I haven't meditated." So what I did is I set up in my room, I have my yoga mat, I have a chi machine, I have my little portable red light therapy, and then I'll listen to, some meditation. And that I try to do every day, but I don't. But at least I know it's there. It's all set up for me. And maybe if I don't get it done in the morning, I'll do it at nighttime before I go to bed. But you
Mhm.
have to make it a priority and you have to be consistent. Am I And the other thing too is, I think we touched on this before when you were talking about if you didn't eat all the healthy carbs or whatever, is to give yourself grace, right? Like I didn't get it today. I tomorrow was
Mhm.
busy, like whatever. So maybe I did it 3 times out of the week. but those are 3 times I'm just gonna be happy with and not beat myself up over not getting it, every day.
Mhm. Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. I get that. But what is it a conditioning? I mean, why don't we do it? And I don't have the answer either, but there's so many
Yeah.
things that I know that are good for me that, yeah, I
Mhm.
don't do, like that massage, right? Oh, I don't need it. I'll wait till I need it or something, or I'm like so much in pain.
Yeah.
I don't know. What is that? Is that conditioning?
Well, yeah, I think it's conditioning. I think it's what we've seen, what we've lived, what is normal for us. And if you don't make a like if you really want to change it, then you have to be the change maker to be, okay, I'm going to write a list of all the things that I want to do or want to add to my health and wellness. And you have to make it a priority. If you don't make it a priority, right? Then it's not going to happen, and what you
Yeah.
focus on expands. So if it becomes not important anymore, then
Yeah.
it's not gonna, and then you might circle back to it, but and life changes too, right? But I think that you just need to have that awareness, because with
Yeah.
that awareness, then you're like, wait, I didn't do that massage. Why didn't I do that massage? I should have went for the massage. And sometimes, I'll go, well, I'm not going to do the 60-minute, but I need a 30-minute. And so
Mhm.
we negotiate with ourselves all the time, right? It's like a what works best.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've come full circle with that, like with this conversation of you need to do it for yourself. No one else is going to say, hey, go get a massage. It's going to be good for you, no matter how much people love you, right? Like you love
Yes.
them. They just don't know. They don't know. And no one is going to say, hey, sit down and meditate for 10 minutes. No one is going to push for that. And this is what I tell my clients. I'm a therapist. I work as a therapist, an associate therapist. And so what I tell my female clients, you have to fight for it. You
Yeah.
actively have to make time for it and fight for it. And I realize that's such an extreme word, right? But initially that's what it
Yeah.
is. You're fighting against conditioning. You're fighting against, oh, I shouldn't do this. It's okay for me not to be okay.
Mhm.
And feeling guilty about taking
Mhm.
some time for yourself, or
Yeah.
asking your partner, right? Hey, can you, if somebody has kids, I don't have kids right now, but hey,
Yeah.
can you watch the kid? I'm going to go get a massage, right? Like even
Yeah.
asking that is such a struggle for women. And I say you have to fight it internally. First of all, you have to fight it internally. You're fighting all these voices that says, nope, you don't need it. You're not in pain right now. Wait till you're in pain. Or
Yeah.
yeah, you don't need it. That's selfish for you to take time off right now. Or it's selfish for you to leave your kids and go get a massage. Or whatnot. I
Yeah.
mean, internally you have to fight for that. And then externally, like asking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There might be a
And
pushback.
part of I think too is like asking and being okay with it. Even back to my doctor
Mhm.
story, when I first was trying to be really proactive, a lot of times, depending on, like, doctors don't get a lot of menopause training. It's not like,
Mhm.
they don't. And so they're not like, I've got examples in the books of or in the book of, like, friends of mine that had, gone to one doctor. They didn't know, so
Mhm.
they sent them to somebody else, then sent them to somebody else. And they still, it took them a lot of time to get what they needed. And in the
Mhm.
book, I give some scripts so that it helps that person who might be going through perimenopause isn't sure. How do I open up this conversation, even with my doctor, to talk about, like, what does that look like? Because I think if you're coming halfway and you're like, okay, this isn't in my mind. I've been tracking my period. These are all how periods I've missed. This is what my cycle looks like. And these are the symptoms I've been experiencing. Then I think that the doctor or whomever, your naturopath, is more inclined to be like, oh, okay. Like, now you've given me something more to look at it. And it also says, I'm not okay with you if you're just going to say it's all in my head. It's not in my head. Like, I
Yeah.
know that for sure. Right. and, and yeah, like this seemed to be a lot of the research that I did, that not everybody felt comfortable, and not every, they were told, oh, here, it's anxiety, take this medicine. No, I don't want the medicine. It's not anxiety. I'm not an anxious
Mm.
person. Right. And
Yeah.
so is having those, how do you open that up? Because a lot of us won't. We'll just say, okay,
Yeah.
and then we walk away because we're like, well, the doctor said, but doctors
Mhm.
are human too, right? And that's part of this movement. And I was just on the hottest menopause party with Temst and Fidel. It was today. And, and that's what one of the doctors had talked about, is like, at least ask for an EKG. That's doctor speak, and we know what you're talking about. So
Mhm.
get an EKG while you're baseline. We know what that is.
Mhm.
Just because heart disease is where it is today, right? And all these diseases that we have. So I felt it was part of the book that I wanted to write, but to help women, give them strategies so that they don't feel like they're like, well, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to do that.
Mhm. So going back to your journey, of having that pushback initially, right, from health providers,
Yeah.
what made you still want to say, well, there's still something here and I'm going to look into it and I'm going to find out what's going on with me?
Yeah, well, like I'm a bit of a geek, and and
Mm.
I had to know what was happening, right? And what was going on with me. So my I then had another, like, fast forward, I had another doctor, and she was fabulous. So it really makes a difference when you have a
Mhm.
good doctor or a naturopath. And she just said to me, look at because she had been through menopause, right? She's older than me. She's like, hey, she peered over her funky glasses and was like, yeah, you're going through menopause. And I was like, what?
Mhm.
Like, but then she had said, I'm going to give you, there's a naturopath in our building. You need to see her. And so that's what
Okay.
I did. I went and saw her and then, did all the blood work and all that. But back then, that wasn't covered by any sort of insurance, medical insurance. At
Right.
least it wasn't here, where in Canada, where I was. And I was a single mom, so I only have so much money to spend for everything. And again, it goes back to now me, like, I can kind of work through these symptoms I'm having. So I only did the free. Like, I could have done a saliva test, but I didn't,
Mhm.
because I think it was about $500 back then. So I did the blood work, and then, she talked about seeding as hormone, but I didn't even understand that. I was like, how am I going to eat seeds and this is going to regulate things? And
Mhm.
so I did a lot of my own research. There is a doctor by the name of Dr. Libby Weaver. She wrote
Mhm.
Rushing Women's Syndrome, and the accidentally overweight. That's one. And she talked about rushing women's syndrome, right? And how we were go, 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 go. And then her insulin. So I just, with what I knew and my training that I had, I just started to look at things and question and read more.
Mhm.
And I kind of just fumbled through it.
Mhm. And and we talked about yeah, how this experience is gonna pass, but there are
Yeah.
some tools that are gonna help you navigate. Can you share a little bit about what generally what tools like work for people like going through perimenopause or menopause, and also personally for you? Like what were some of the things that you found worked for you
Mhm.
to help you navigate the situation a little better, to make it a little easier?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think a lot of the tools that for me, my biggest was the weight gain that I had throughout my, I used to, there's a chapter in the book called I just want my skinny jeans back. And I grew up in that era where, you jumped on the scale every Monday, and now you don't even want to look at the scale, and where I just wore dresses all the time because how I felt in the morning would have been okay to put on those jeans. And then by 10 o'clock, I had a lot of bloat. I had to
Mm-hmm.
take digestive enzymes just to help my like regulate my food so that my stomach wasn't always bloaty.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, it was a lot of um, like to get rid of the weight because I didn't feel good with the weight gain. And I'm not talking
Mm-hmm.
like 5 pounds. I was probably 20 pounds overweight.
Okay.
And so that's when I started to really look into like, and then any of the diets that I had worked and used before, they weren't working anymore. So that's another level of
Mm-hmm.
frustration that you almost want to be like, okay, I'm going to throw in the towel. So now it's like that's where the part of the intermittent fasting started to come back in too,
Okay.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
understanding my hormones and not eating at like simple things like just not eating after 6 o'clock and starting to
Mm-hmm.
make those better choices, looking at the glycemic index, what is going to spike your blood sugar and go and that's been a journey too, because I had to understand more things. Not everything, like I have a girlfriend who goes, Karen, I need to eat so many calories because my body functions that way. If I tried to
Mm-hmm.
intermittent fast, it wouldn't work for me. So there's lots
Mm-hmm.
of different things. But one of the other thing is just getting your headspace back. So is that meditation, right? That's another something that I brought in my practice or just my quiet time that I
Mm-hmm.
have to have by myself. Um, and I can tell with not even, having to pick my finger or whatever to know what my blood sugar is doing after I've eaten now, right? Oh, I feel really
Yeah.
groggy or that gave me a headache. And just to get away from the sugar. Sugar is such
Mm-hmm.
a big thing, right? And then looking at the gut bacteria and our gut microbiome, and starting to feed that the way it should be, because there's so many things out there that disrupt your microbiome. We have microbiomes all throughout our body, and then the other was just really using anything that I was putting on my skin or
Mm-hmm.
brushing my teeth with was really cleaning out a lot of toxic products in my kitchen and in my house that I had, incorporating essential oils into just even giving you that nice, like they say, if you smell rosemary, it really helps your cognitive function in your
Mm-hmm.
brain. Like there's studies on that. So it was a blend of a bunch of different things that I have in the book that I talk about, depending on what it is
Mm-hmm.
we're going through, right at
Mm-hmm.
that time. But and it's just you creating a toolbox of different things. Like some people say, "Oh, Karen, I can't meditate." Well, just try it for 30 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
60 seconds, right? It's hard to shut your brain down. Um, and then, just all those other little things that they're not hard. Like that's the thing. I think we're all looking for this really, oh, this is what you it's not. It's exercise, getting out, getting sunshine, getting your feet in the grass, on the sand, whatever it is, having the sun, getting your vitamin D. We overcomplicate things. We don't need to.
Wow. Yeah, I hear you. And once we've come full circle with that conversation too, right? It's so simple, but why don't we do it? Is it this is like all this idea that the solution is something so complicated?
Mhm.
Or is it, yeah, is it we just can't get ourselves to do the simple things that we need because then it would be, we'd have to focus on ourselves. Um,
Like
I wanted to,
anything that
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Anything like that is worth fighting for, and anything that is right isn't always easy, right? The easy way isn't the best way. So the time it takes for you to do something, right? It's going to be hard. It's going to be crappy. You're going to be like, "Oh, but I really want." No, but when you get
Yeah.
onto the other side of it, and, and in the book, that's what I said. I go, hey, if we had a magic pill, we'd all be, skinnier.
Yeah.
We'd all be this, we'd all be
Oh,
that. But we have to work. Like another friend of mine says, you've got issues in your tissues. A lot of the toxicity isn't just, what's in my kitchen. It's who I'm hanging around with too. So
Mhm.
it's kind of a check,
Yeah,
like we have that checklist as well. So I tried to make it like it's got to be a holistic picture. It just can't be these little siloed pieces. It
right.
just, your body doesn't work that way. And your body is so smart. So smart.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And something that you mentioned that you really have to change your ways, right?
Yeah.
The workouts that were working for you were no longer working. The whatever you
Yeah.
ate and you were fine at one point in your 20s, 30s, whatever, now is no longer working for you. And
Yeah.
I do want to say that's where I want to validate that because that's where the struggle could also come in, right? But well, I could do this before. It worked for me before. Why is it not working for me now? Well, your body changes. And that's a conversation we've been having, right? As a woman, your
Mhm.
body changes. Your body isn't the same body you had in your 20s versus your
Mhm.
30s versus 40s, perimenopause and menopause onward, right? And the
Yeah.
things that I used to do in my 20s, I used to wake up, eat cookies and coffee and go work out. And I was fine. I would not have to eat until 2 or 3 p.m., one
Yeah.
meal a day. Incredible.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, I don't even drink. I have
Mhm.
like recovery days when I eat junk food. If I eat junk food the day before, the next day, I feel it. I feel it in my energy level. I feel it in my body. It cannot push my body the same way I did when I was in my 20s. And part of me, the conversation was like, man, I'm really falling apart. What's going on with me? But that was prior to
Yeah.
like, having this conversation and kind of, learning more about my body and that my body is not against me. I have to be with it though. My
Yes.
body is changing and I have to change along with it, or I'm really going to harm myself. I'm really going to hurt myself. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we do. We change continually. And like I was just away in January, and in my head I'm still 30. And my physical and I back in the day I competed in a figure competition. I gained muscle. I walked on stage in a bikini, like I worked out, I did all that. So in my brain I'm like, why can't I just get back there? I was putting in hours a week of training and eating a certain way, and that was not sustainable. It was good until the competition, right? So, going back on vacation, I'm like, well, I still want to wear a two-piece. Like I'm not giving in to wearing a one piece or, looking frumpy on the beach. And then, you go back, we're so mean to ourselves. Oh, because I'll be like, oh, look at that picture. I look like I have a huge double chin and, like, look at my gut. And I'm like, you know what? I'm 59 years old. That wasn't a flattering picture because I should have sat up and looked better. But we are, I am where I am. I'm still, I feel very blessed to be physically fit for where I am right now, understanding my limitations, finding out what it is. And that's what I say to clients, find out what you love. What do you love to do? I love walking. Well, then let's get walking. I love
Mhm.
Pilates. I found Pilates and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it. So, find what you love because then it's not work. You will figure out how to fit that in if you really love something. But if somebody was
Mhm.
to say to me, well, Karen, like, let's get on that treadmill, I'd be like,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to vacuum. Or like, right? When we don't want to do something, we come up with 97 excuses. So it goes back to the simplest of the simple. Just get out and
Yeah.
move, walk. It doesn't cost you
Right.
anything. Here's the other thing too. Intermittent fasting does not cost you anything.
Mhm.
Watching what you put in your right, like that does not cost you anything. That is like I'll do 72-hour water fasts. where I know every like 12 hours, 17 hours, 48 hours, what my body is doing, how it's reproducing stem cells, like getting rid of bad cells in my body that are no longer, that's free. Like that just
Hmm.
takes some real self discipline, but that is free. And, you're helping your body so much that but it's hard work, right? We go back to that, like we circled back around again, but these are things that don't cost you anything except
Yeah.
for, your time. And when I'm fasting, and intermittent fasting, then you have Christmas. My mom makes all these awesome Christmas cookies. I eat the cookies, but I know once Christmas is over and New Year's is done, I'll go back
Yeah.
because then you're just going to be
Yeah.
grumpy. Who doesn't eat cookies
Mhm.
over Christmas?
Right. Right. I mean, yeah. And something you said about now things are that simple, right? You can ask yourself like what do I enjoy doing? If it's going on walks, go for a walk. If it's Pilates, do Pilates. And it's as simple as really trusting your body and not
Hmm.
putting this idea of should. Well, I like walking, but I should run. That's like that
Yeah.
adds such a layer of like self-hatred that I can't even begin
Yeah.
to like talk about that. This should,
Yeah.
you know?
I should do a lot of things. Do I do them? No. And that's okay. And you have to let it go. Yeah, you're so
Mhm.
right about, yeah, I'm walking. Oh, I should probably run. Why?
Running is
Well,
better. And then,
yeah,
yeah.
like yeah, and your joints won't like it. And as you have, when estrogen starts to disappear in perimenopause and menopause, that's also for collagen, right? And for your ligaments and things like that. That's why we have to relook and focus on what are we choosing to do that our body is going to work with us on and, not fighting us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we really have to learn how to shut out the noise that comes from outside because we do have those voices, right? Well, you shouldn't be
Yeah.
walking, you should be running, you should be doing hit workouts, you should be this much workout this many times a week. And I'm sorry, but it is the answer lies within. Your body will tell you what's good for you. If I lift weights every single day of the week, I'm sorry, that's not good for my body at all. I
Yeah.
know that. I just don't
Mhm.
function like that. None of my ancestors worked out like that, so it's just not. It
No.
doesn't work for me. Um,
Yeah.
but it's this conditioning once again, right? Like so many things we're fighting against, like this conditioning, also the
Yeah.
societal shoulds of whatever innately comes within us, right? Like the instinct,
Yeah.
whatever instinctively comes with it from within us
Yeah.
is wrong, and you should do how everybody things how everybody else is doing it. And yeah, and the answer can't be that simple. Is it just as simple as like choosing better food, taking care of
Yeah.
yourself, taking the time out, going on a walk, getting some sunshine, getting some fresh air?
Yeah.
Is it that simple? Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
might
and
just be.
yeah, and sometimes I'll ask clients, why do you do that? Well, I just do it because like why? And sometimes they can't answer that, right? They'll be like, "Oh, well, I guess I always did it that way." And so then it's like getting that pattern like 30 days, to change a habit. So how do we make small changes that aren't too restrictive because then nobody's going to do them. Or
Yeah.
then if we don't get them all done, then we feel like a loop, like, oh, I'm so, I didn't get it. And I think as you get older, you, you just kind of, I don't know, you become, first of all, you don't worry about things like you once did. Like all the things like, people's opinions or they just kind of, it's like, you don't like what I'm doing. Well, maybe we need to part ways. But you're not as, you find those people that aren't really your tribe just kind of flow away, and you
Yeah.
start to deal with other things that maybe push down really far down. And that's how I kind of find talk about in the last chapter of the book. Like I call it metapositive. Like this isn't
Well,
a, Debbie Downer. Like, no, there's so much after. Um, and so how do you radiate that new glow? Like, what does that look like for you? How do you feel like you're like, I don't know. Everybody uses the butterfly analogy, right? Like the caterpillar, and
mm,
then you shake that off, and but it truly is. It's sometimes you just and yeah, the judgment piece and what people think, I just really don't care anymore. I'm like, well, if that's and so sometimes it's hard because you filed all those feelings of something really deep down, and now they start to come up again, and you're like, oh geez, I better deal with that, right?
yeah. And for people watching, right, this isn't just a conversation about menopause alone, and it's a conversation for all women, like at all ages, like
Yeah.
20s onward. The way you treat your body in your 20s
Yes.
matters. It's going to show up in your 30s, 40s, and onward. And
Yes.
the sooner you develop these habits, right, of really knowing how to take care of yourself. And women hear me when I say, when you are okay, the people around you are okay, because you don't build resentment. You're not mean. You're not, because those things are going to come out. If you're not taking care of yourself, it's going to
Yeah.
come out in the most self-destructive way, where it also impacts the people who are around you. And
Yeah.
these are the habits that you can start early on, right? And these are the habits that we model for our kids, for
Mhm.
sons and
Yeah.
daughters. So they know
Yeah.
that, yeah, like you take care of yourself, you put yourself
Yeah.
first. That doesn't mean you're neglecting anybody else. It just means that you are able to show up in your best skin, in your best self. And like you said, you
Yeah.
radiate that happiness. And I know we talked about, like women becoming jaded, grumpier. Doesn't have to be like that. The simple solution is, what are the needs of yourself? What is the self requiring in any given moment? It might change from today to tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? If you're not feeling up to something, it's okay to say no. No, but thanks for asking. We
Sure.
overcommit to everything, right? Oh yeah, yeah. No, no, sorry, I can't do that. And that's again, it's not an easy thing, but no, it's a simple no, but thanks for asking,
Yeah.
right?
Saying
And
no
end
and
of
then not.
story. Don't overcomplicate it and keep
Yeah.
talking after that. There's a period after that. Thanks for asking. Period.
Right. Not like,
Right?
no, well, I've been going through this and then that happened. I'm so sorry. I'm just not in a good headspace. I just need some time alone. I'm so sorry. I'm not usually like this. Tomorrow I'll be better. I promise. Like, I've been guilty of that. It's like saying no is so difficult for me, because I associate it with being a bad person, like somehow like
Mhm.
saying no. And of course that's like conditioning, right? Like that I learned from my grandmother, my mother. You never say no to anybody else, because women, us, like by definition, are here to serve, to take care. And so when you're saying no to someone else, you're just like a bad person.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a battle and
Yeah.
other
It
conversation.
really is because you're like, "Oh, I can't believe I just said no. Keep walking, keep walking." Like, but that's that is starting to create your boundary now of what it is that you're willing to accept or not accept. And it will be hard, and other people, it will be hard for them to hear that because you've never had that boundary around them, right? So now you've got this and they're not liking it. And it's easy to give in and go, yeah, okay, okay. But it's just really sticking towards to it, and being
There's a
firm.
price to
Yeah.
pay. There's always a price to pay, right? For being a people pleaser, for not having boundaries. There's always a price to pay. But this is what I say. There's never a consequence for taking care of yourself. You're not going to get punished. And of course, I can say
No.
this logically, but of course, I act like the minute I say no, I'm like, oh my God, the sky's gonna fall down, the world's gonna fall apart. I just said no. Like, what's gonna happen now?
Yeah.
Of course, like I go through those, but part of it is also like, what would I, what would I tell my client? And
Yeah.
then I have that answer. I was like, okay, I have to like walk the walk. I can't just like preach something and not live it. So I'm like,
Yes.
I try, but it is hard.
Hmm. Right? We're people pleasers. We
Yeah.
want to please everybody. Okay. Yep. Okay. Sure. Oh, I never wanted somebody to be disappointed in me. Like, oh, if I said no, they're going to be disappointed. And then I just can't disappoint them. And that's exhausting,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like that is truly exhausting. And you can't please everybody. Like, why aren't we pleasing and making ourselves happy
Yeah.
first?
Yeah. And you don't have to learn this the hard way. Like if someone's in their 20s listening, these are the habits that you can start implementing
Oh
right
my
now.
gosh.
Don't be a
Yeah.
people pleaser. Be okay saying no. It's going to serve you. It's going to help you. You don't have to learn the hard way, right? You don't have to fall apart and then be like, man, I better change my ways now. You can start changing your ways right now, implementing
Yeah.
all these good habits that will serve you for the long term.
Yeah. Like my daughter's 24. She'll be 25
Mhm.
this year. And, it's funny how I see things that I did just automatically, but they're always watching you, right?
Mhm.
So, Haley meal preps on a Sunday and she'll be like, Mom, she lives on the other side of the country, and
Mhm.
in British Columbia. So we
Oh.
FaceTime a lot. She'll be like, Hey, Mom, what was the recipe? And so we share a lot of recipes, but she
Mhm.
meal preps on a Sunday so that she's eating, and she's always been an athlete. So I always had to make
Mhm.
sure, protein, protein, protein. Again, that's another in perimenopause and menopause, right? Like we get into your protein and stuff. So, and I say to her, Haley, like, if I knew, like, I'm trying to impart all my wisdom on her so that it's not as her trying to figure things out as
Yeah.
she goes. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, if you have like women in their 20s listening to this podcast, embrace all this information that is going to be out there for you, because
Mhm.
you're going to be able to be like zip, 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 zip. Oh, yeah, nope, not going to
Yeah.
fall into that trap. Going to go over
Yeah.
here and be curious, listen, and deep down we know the things that make us feel good and the things that don't. And just having like those little things along the way, just they help you out. And whether it's a journal of how you're feeling, and when you're getting your periods and whatever, something changes. Like when you think about back in the day, we used to do diaries. I wrote in my diary today, and then diaries were like "Eh." And then journals are back, so we journal, right? We just don't call it a diary and it doesn't have a lock on it, but But, all these different things. And, for my daughter, she's always like, she's been an athlete. So I'm always like, hey, Hales, like, are you getting enough protein? Are you eating enough?
Mhm.
Because then, just that she'll be like, yeah, like I just have to make sure she's always watching and not, when you were saying earlier, oh, I'm walking, but I should be running. Well, she would be the one like running, but maybe she should run at a faster pace.
Oh, yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
girl, so
Yeah.
there's so much, like, if I was in my 20s and I got all the knowledge that's out there today,
Mhm.
I would be like the biggest geeky sponge.
Mm.
And but then you're setting yourself up for success. And we've done all the hard work so that it helps them go, yeah, okay, well then I am going to do the massage, or I'm going to um buy this or get this, because it like the red light therapy, because it
Mhm.
helps my muscles repair. So I
Mhm.
think sometimes too, we associate cost, right? Like that cost, oh, I
Mhm.
can't afford that. But if it can help for something down the road, some chronic illness or what have you, then I just bought an infrared sauna. Okay. And I've been
Mhm.
contemplating because I'm like, oh, it is a lot of money. But I know it's so good for you to get in there and sweat and get all those toxins out of your body
Mhm.
that we don't even know we have, right? And so I was like, oh, and then the other day I'm like, ah, screw it. I'm just buying it. And the guy goes, well, you just got in right at the perfect time because the prices are going up because of lumber.
Oh,
But I, had researched everything to make sure. Anyways, but that is an investment in
yeah.
my health.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anybody who comes to my house can go sit in the the infrared
Mm.
sauna, right? So they can use the chi machine. I think I'm just going to open up my house as a wellness
Yeah.
sanctuary.
Yeah.
Right? But it's those things that make you feel good. I live close to the
Yeah.
beach, the lake, and for me to go and take my feet into the sand and walk the lake, walk the shore, oh, I get ideas, right? Like, so when you're doing what it is you love, it's actually invigorating your brain, right?
Yeah.
It's going, you're like, oh, I just thought of this and I thought of that. Oh, I feel so much better. It's just like level setting your emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for your time. I learned so much. And as I was talking, I realized a lot of things about myself. And I'm sure when I'm like watching this again, I'm going to continue learning. And is
Yeah.
there anything like what advice would you give people? Just like a few things like tools that they can utilize or just like nuggets of wisdom. Somebody who's going through the struggle, feeling a little crazy, what would you tell them? Like somebody either perimenopause or menopause symptoms and they just feel insane. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I'd say, you know what? Take your hands and just give yourself a really big hug,
Oh,
because we are so hard on ourselves and understanding, and for some people, it's like, oh my gosh, who am I going to talk to? Where am I going to turn? And there's more and more things out there for women now, right? But just to really give yourself grace and be okay with where you are
mhm.
today. There's always tomorrow, and to move forward, but and just do little things at a time. If it's something that you like, or you're going to do a small change and you can do the change and it helps you, it makes you feel better. Whether that's starting, yeah, I'm going to take more vitamin D now. I know my vitamin D is really important. I'm going to go find a vitamin D. I don't mean you have to buy all the supplements out there, or I'm going to try fasting. I'm going to try not eating after 6 o'clock. I'm going to try
Mhm.
little things. And how does that make my body feel? And so I would just really listen to your body, because a lot of times we're so caught up and we're so busy, we don't listen. We kind of hear it, but we're not paying attention. And that's what I would say is, pay attention, stay curious, and give yourself
Mhm.
grace.
Yeah. Beautiful. So beautiful, you said. Tell us about your book and where people can find you, how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love to send out some free copies. My book is going to be on Amazon. It is on
Mhm.
Amazon right now. You can pre-order the Kindle version. I do have it right now. It's 99 cents as an introduction. So you can Google Karen Roy, or on Amazon Karen Roy. I'm not crazy. You're not crazy. It's Menopause: A Girlfriend's Guide to Survive.
Yeah.
Um, and it will be released the week of May 27th. So if
Yeah.
you pay the 99 cents, you'll get the email when it comes out.
Mhm.
And then, just my Instagram accounts. I also have Mighty Networks. So I have that as well. So I can give you all the names and you can drop it in the notes. But just to again, it's just sharing that information and having credible sources to know and to go and to be around other women that are supporting you.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds beautiful. I will leave your Instagram handle and the book and the links. Everything will be in the description section so people can reach out to you. And
Yeah.
thank you for such a needed conversation. I don't
Oh,
know,
you're
my
so
soul
welcome.
just feels so like, I don't know, I feel at ease. It's just my
Yeah,
soul is,
good.
feels at ease.
Hey.
Yeah.
I know, right? But yeah, I think it's just warming that like your soul, right? Like there's something out there, right? We don't have to suffer in silence anymore. There's so many of us
Yeah.
trying to break the silence.
Yeah. There's hope. Yeah.
There is definitely hope. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be on your podcast. And yeah, thanks again. I enjoyed it. I get as much out of these talks. Like, I just love it because we could keep chatting forever.
Yeah.